Meteorologist Zach Fidel here with HurricaneTrack.com, pulling a little web duties for Mark as he's out in the field tracking Hurricane Harvey out there. So you'll kind of see a new face. You'll see my face. Anytime we have a landfalling storm, I'll help him out to sort of keep the web things going to where we can keep you updated at home. Hurricane Harvey made landfall as a Category 4 storm last night at exactly 10 o'clock. It made landfall in Rockport, Texas, right around the Port Aransas, just north of Corpus Christi. This is the first major to strike the United States since Wilma in South Florida back in October of 2005, and it's the first Category 4 to strike the United States since Charley back in 2004. And I know many of you, if you followed Mark for any duration of time, understand that the absolute footage that he got from Hurricane Charley from underneath that overpass when it made landfall in Florida back in 2004 was absolutely incredible. And some of that incredible footage has kind of been captured in the Rockport area of Texas as well. So this was definitely a very intense storm that's made landfall in Texas. But phase one is complete. Okay, so phase one was the landfall with the wind and the surge. That is now complete. Okay, but now phase two we go into. Phase two is going to be the very heavy rainfall that this storm is going to produce not only today, the next consecutive days. We're talking maybe a week of very heavy rainfall that's coming to Texas and portions of Louisiana as well. Here's the latest visible satellite, and I can tell you right now, as a meteorologist, you see this and you're like, this thing has been over land for 12 hours, and it is very well organized. This thing is still a hurricane. Latest advisory as of 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. Central Time shows this as a 75 miles per hour hurricane, still producing some hurricane force winds. Look how consolidated it is. It's not getting any dry air intrusion, even though it's been over land for so long. And you see this band right here? This is the thing that we're very concerned about, especially in Southeast Texas, Houston metropolitan area. That band is one of those feeder bands that is going to kind of sit over the same areas over the next consecutive days. And where that thing sets up each and every day, that's going to be where we're going to see the most intense rainfall and the most intense flooding, unfortunately. Let me show you radar, because since we are on land, I can show you the actual latest radar imagery. And as it loads for you, can see there's a huge area of flash flood warnings. And this is just, this entire area of Texas is just going to light up with warnings. And there's also an actual tornado warning at this time as well. But notice how the winds are coming down. I've plotted the winds on here, and they're coming down somewhat as well. So slowly this thing is starting to weaken just a little bit. But it's the very heavy rainfall that we're very concerned about over the coming days. So unfortunately, this doesn't want to load for me at this time, but what I'll do is I'll jump to Mark's stream. This is from the Port O'Connor camera. This is from that pod that he's put out in Port O'Connor. You can still see waves crashing against the seawall. Water is over the seawall. There's been a surge in Port O'Connor. I don't have the official numbers yet, but I know I spoke to Mark a little while ago. He's going to be heading down. He's going to be picking up his pods, and then he's going to be heading over to Houston as well. But the wind still coming in from a southeasterly direction in Port O'Connor, so we're still getting a push of the water. It's at least keeping the water at the same level and not allowing it to head out. It's really, I don't think it's rising anymore, but it's just keeping that water level high at this point, and still the wind gusts are, up to hurricane force along the coast, unfortunately for them. So this is one of his cameras. You can always find the cameras on Ustream, or also you can get them from HurricaneTrack.com. The latest information from the National Hurricane Center, and there you have it. This thing is just going to sit in the same spot for the next week. We're going all the way to 7 a.m. Thursday, so it's not officially a week, but 5 days from now, it's still just to the northwest of Houston. We have thought that at some point it might get back over the open Gulf. That's looking less likely now, but it's going to get close enough to the coast that it's not going to, it does weaken it down to a depression, but the effects are going to be the same. The wind's going to come down, the surge is going to subside, but the rainfall, and we know with weak storms that just sit close enough to the Gulf or close enough to any, water area, as long as they're bringing in that moisture source from, that body of water, the rainfall totals can be astronomical. And that's what we might be looking at. Here's the latest information, still 75 miles per hour as of 11 a.m. and the 10 a.m. Central Time advisory. So this is still Hurricane Harvey, probably going to become a tropical storm over the next few hours, though. The latest prediction from the National Hurricane Center, and, we've been saying this, our color tables don't go high enough. The National Hurricane Center color table for their rainfall totals doesn't go high enough to indicate how much rain we're expecting between a corridor from, say, north of Corpus Christi to San Antonio to Victoria to Houston down to Galveston. In that corridor, we're talking 30 to possibly even 45 inches of rain when all of this is said and done. And then that stretches all the way into portions of Louisiana. Not those amounts, but 10 to 15 inches could easily get into western Louisiana. And as the storm, like I was mentioning before, as I'm gonna go back to the satellite, as the storm weakens over land, it's going to expand in size. And so these feeder bands, this one feeder band right here, is probably going to start to migrate outward, and that's what's going to bring portions of western Louisiana into play eventually. And then each one of these little bands, there's going to be a new one that develops on this side of the storm. That's going to move into Metro Houston later on today. It's just going to keep producing these little feeder bands, and it's where those feeder bands set up that then we have to worry about the extensive flooding across portions of the Texas coastline, even into central Texas. Say San Antonio is going to get in on some of this over into western Louisiana, and maybe even as far east as southeastern Louisiana, the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas as we go later into, say, early next week. That's when we might see the storm really expand as far as the effects goes, and the heavy rain threat might expand and the other places, the deep south and also the Gulf Coast. So that's kind of winding it down. Yes, the storm is winding down, but like I said, the phase 2 is just picking up. The flood threat is going to be probably the more impactful or widespread impactful part of this storm. Yes, this thing will weaken to a tropical storm and eventually a tropical depression, but we're going to be dealing with this thing for quite a few days ahead. Like I mentioned before, though, Mark is going to pick up those pods and he's going to head over to Houston, and we'll be tracking with HurricaneTrack.com. We'll be tracking the flash flooding, and eventually, I say phase 2, there's going to be probably a phase 3. Once the rain finally subsides at the end of next week, you got to remember the river flooding that's going to come after this too. So that's another thing to keep in mind as we go throughout, really the next 72 to 168 or more hours. But I'm meteorologist Zach Corelli here for HurricaneTrack.com. Have a great rest of your Saturday.